Larkspur, a town draped in whispers. Maggie Fisher, a woman weathered by grief. Her son Thomas gone. A tragic accident, they said. A mother's worst nightmare. Maggie sought solace in her late husband's sanctuary, his library. Dust-laden shelves, the scent of aging parchment, a refuge from the storm within.
She ran a finger along the spines, each book a memory. Her fingers brushed against something cold, leather-bound. A chill ran down her spine. It was tucked away, hidden. A black journal, its pages blank, or so it seemed. As Maggie stared, a single word appeared, shimmering on the first page. Remember.
Fear, sharp and cold, pierced through Maggie. Remember? What was there to remember? She slammed the journal shut, her heart pounding against her ribs. This was madness, grief playing tricks. She tried to distract herself, to focus on the familiar surroundings of the library. But the black book called to her, its presence a weight in the room.
Hesitantly, she reached out again. The leather was cold beneath her touch, almost unnatural. As she opened it once more, the shimmering word remained. Remember. It beckoned, an accusation and a promise. A second word materialized beneath it in elegant cursive. Thomas. Her son's name, stark and impossible. A sob escaped her lips. This was not a game, this was something else.
The journal became her world. Each night, new words, a new memory, her past laid bare, a forgotten summer, a boy named Samuel, a field of sunflowers, their faces turned towards the sun. Maggie hadn't thought of Samuel in years. Their love, a youthful whirlwind, ending in a bitter fight. She had left Larkspur, vowing never to return.
But the journal didn't forget. It spoke of a promise made under the summer sun, a pact, inked in blood, a child, offered in exchange for a life of prosperity. Maggie's blood ran cold. Thomas. The journal was speaking of Thomas. She had tried to forget, to bury the past, but the black journal was dredging it all up, forcing her to confront a past she had long tried to outrun.
Days turned into weeks. The journal's grip tightened. Maggie became a recluse, haunted by the revelations within its pages. She saw the truth in the journal's words. Her success, her wealth, it had all come at a price. She had made a deal with something ancient, something evil, and now it had come to collect.
The thought of Thomas, her sweet, innocent Thomas, being the subject of such a pact was unbearable. Yet a part of her couldn't deny the truth. The journal wouldn't let her. It was a mirror reflecting the darkest parts of her soul, the parts she had tried to keep hidden. But the black journal saw all, knew all, and it was starting to demand its due.
Section 5. The accident. The journal revealed more than just the pact. It spoke of the accident.
Not an accident, it whispered, a sacrifice.
It painted a horrifying picture, a mother's worst nightmare. Maggie, consumed by guilt and fear, pushing her son into the path of an oncoming car, her hand moving with a will of its own.
I had tried to convince myself it was a fabrication, a cruel trick of the journal, but the memories were surfacing now, unbidden and horrifying.
The screech of tires, the sickening thud, her son's lifeless eyes staring up at her, the horror, the guilt.
The black journal was not just revealing the past, it was twisting it, making me relive every agonizing moment.
Driven to the brink, Maggie sought solace in the one place she had avoided, the church. The weight of her actions had become unbearable, and she felt as though she was drowning in a sea of guilt and regret. The church, with its towering spires and solemn silence, seemed like the only refuge left for her troubled soul. She had always believed that the church was a place of judgment, a place where her sins would be laid bare for all to see. But now, in her darkest hour, it was the only place she could think of to find some semblance of peace.
Father Michael, I don't know where else to turn. I've made mistakes, terrible mistakes, and I fear the consequences are far beyond what I can handle. I need guidance, I need help, and I don't know if anyone else can provide it.
Father Michael, her childhood priest, listened with a mixture of concern and disbelief. He had known Maggie since she was a little girl, full of life and innocence. Seeing her now, so broken and desperate, was a stark contrast to the vibrant child he remembered. He could sense the depth of her torment and knew that whatever she was about to confess was weighing heavily on her soul.
There was a pact, a journal, and the accident. It was all connected. I thought I could control it, that I could handle the consequences, but I was wrong. The journal, it holds secrets, dark secrets that I never should have uncovered, and the pact, It was a mistake, a terrible mistake that I can't undo.
But as Maggie poured out her heart, revealing the pact, the journal, and the accident, a look of grave understanding washed over him. Father Michael had heard many confessions in his time, but this one was different. The weight of Maggie's words, the fear in her eyes, and the trembling in her voice told him that this was no ordinary sin. This was something far more sinister, something that went beyond the realm of human understanding.
What have I done? What am I dealing with? I thought I could handle it, but now I'm not so sure. The journal, the pact, the accident, it's all too much. I don't know if I can ever make things right.
There were forces, he explained, ancient and powerful, that thrived on human despair. These forces were not to be taken lightly, and they had a way of ensnaring those who were vulnerable, those who were desperate for a way out. They offered solutions, tempting bargains that seemed too good to be true, and often they were. The true cost of these bargains was hidden, buried beneath layers of deceit and manipulation. They offered tempting bargains, their true cost hidden in plain sight. These bargains were designed to lure in the desperate, to offer them a way out of their misery, but at a price that was far greater than they could ever imagine. The consequences of these bargains were often devastating, leaving those who accepted them in a worse state than before.
The Black Journal, it's a conduit, isn't it? It's the key to everything, the source of all this darkness. I thought I could use it to my advantage, but now I see that it was using me all along. It's a trap, a dangerous trap that I walked right into.
The Black Journal was a conduit, a reminder of the pact she had made. It was a symbol of the darkness that had entered her life, a constant reminder of the mistake she had made. The journal held secrets, dark and dangerous secrets that had the power to destroy lives. It was a link to the ancient forces that Father Michael had spoken of, a link that needed to be severed if Maggie was to find any hope of redemption. Father Michael offered words of comfort, urging her to pray for forgiveness. He knew that the road ahead would be difficult, that the forces she had entangled herself with would not let go easily. But he also knew that there was always hope, that redemption was possible, even for the gravest of sins. He encouraged her to seek solace in prayer, to find strength in her faith, and to believe that she could overcome the darkness that had taken hold of her life.
But some sins can't be forgiven. No matter how much I pray, no matter how much I seek redemption, I know that there are some things that can never be undone. The pact, the journal, the accident, they will haunt me for the rest of my life.
But Maggie knew deep down that some sins couldn't be forgiven. The weight of her actions, the darkness she had invited into her life, and the consequences of her choices were things she would have to live with forever. As she left the church, she felt a glimmer of hope, but also a deep sense of resignation. The path to redemption would be long and arduous, and she wasn't sure if she would ever truly find peace. Desperate, Maggie returned to the library, the black journal clutched in her hand. The weight of its secrets seemed to pull her down, but she couldn't let go. The library, with its towering shelves and the scent of old paper, was the only place she felt she could find answers. She had been here countless times, but today felt different. Today, she was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost.
I have to know more. I have to understand. This journal holds the key. I can feel it. Every page, every word, it's all leading me somewhere. But where? And why? The questions swirled in her mind, but she pushed them aside, focusing on the task at hand.
As she opened it, a new entry shimmered on the page. The words seemed to dance, glowing with an otherworldly light. It was as if the journal was alive, responding to her presence. She had never seen anything like it before. The entry was fresh, as if written just moments ago.
A way out, but the price. What could it mean? She whispered the words to herself, trying to make sense of them. The journal spoke of a way to break the pact, but at what cost? The price mentioned was vague, yet ominous. It sent a shiver down her spine.
It spoke of a way out, a way to break the pact. The instructions were detailed, almost ritualistic. Each step was precise, leaving no room for error. Maggie's eyes scanned the page, absorbing every detail. She knew she had to follow it exactly, or risk everything. But the price was steep. The journal hinted at a sacrifice, something of great value. Maggie's heart raced as she considered what that could mean. She had already lost so much. Could she bear to lose more? The thought was almost too much to bear. Another soul for a soul. The words were clear, written in a dark, foreboding script. It was a chilling revelation. The pact demanded a life in exchange for freedom. Maggie's mind raced, trying to think of a way around it, but the journal left no room for doubt.
A soul for a soul. The phrase echoed in her mind, haunting her. She repeated it softly, as if saying it out loud would make it less real. But it didn't. The reality of the situation was sinking in, and it was terrifying.
The journal detailed a ritual, a summoning. It described ancient symbols and incantations, things Maggie had only read about in myths and legends. The illustrations were intricate, almost mesmerizing. She could feel the power emanating from the pages. It spoke of an entity, a gatekeeper, who could sever the ties that bound her. This being was ancient, powerful, and not to be trifled with. The journal warned of the dangers, but also promised freedom. Maggie felt a glimmer of hope, but it was overshadowed by fear. But the ritual required a sacrifice, an offering of equal value to the life that had been taken. The instructions were clear, and there was no way around it. Maggie's mind raced as she considered what she could offer. The stakes were higher than she had ever imagined.
I know what I have to do. Her voice was steady, but inside she was trembling. The decision weighed heavily on her, but she knew there was no other way. She had to be strong for herself and for those she loved.
Maggie trembled, her heart a lead weight in her chest. The fear was almost paralyzing, but she couldn't let it stop her. She had come too far to turn back now. Every beat of her heart reminded her of the stakes, of what she stood to lose. She knew what she had to do. With a deep breath, she steeled herself for the task ahead. The path was clear and there was no turning back. Maggie was ready to face whatever came next, no matter the cost. The next morning, Larkspur awoke to a chilling discovery. Maggie Fisher was gone, vanished without a trace. The town, usually bustling with the early morning routines of its residents, was eerily silent. The air was thick with an unspoken dread, as if the very essence of the town had shifted overnight.
Whisper, goodbye.
The only sign of her passing, a single black feather resting on the floor of the library. It was as if she had been spirited away by some unseen force, leaving behind this enigmatic clue. The feather, dark and delicate, seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. The black journal, too, was gone. This book, shrouded in mystery and whispered about in hushed tones, had always been a source of intrigue and fear. Its disappearance only deepened the enigma surrounding Maggie's fate.
Echoing, a soul for a soul.
Some whispered of a woman seen walking towards the old cemetery, a wild look in her eyes. This woman, they said, bore an uncanny resemblance to Maggie, but her eyes held a madness that was unsettling. Was it truly her, or some specter that had taken her form? Others spoke of strange lights emanating from the woods that night. These lights, flickering and dancing among the trees, were unlike anything the townsfolk had ever seen. They cast eerie shadows and seemed to beckon those who dared to look closer.
Distant, I have to do this.
The townsfolk of Larkspur, forever bound to the shadows that clung to their history, simply shook their heads. They had seen too many strange occurrences to be truly surprised, yet each new mystery added to the weight of their collective unease. Another soul claimed by the darkness that lingered at the edges of their lives. This darkness, ever present and insidious, seemed to feed on the fears and secrets of the town, growing stronger with each passing year. The truth of Maggie Fisher's fate remained a mystery, lost to the whispers of the wind. The wind, carrying tales of sorrow and loss, seemed to mock the townsfolk's attempts to uncover the truth. The black paper, they said, always collected its due. This ominous saying, passed down through generations, served as a grim reminder of the price that must be paid for delving into the unknown. Somewhere in the space between reality and nightmare, the black journal lay open. Its pages, filled with the weight of countless broken promises and stolen lives, pulsed with a malevolent energy.
Echoing, a soul for a soul.
The ink shimmered, a new entry taking shape. A name appeared on the blank page, written in a hand trembling with fear and desperation. A soul offered in exchange for another. The cycle continued. The black paper had claimed another victim,